In marketing, we used to think that it was sex that sells. Then the algorithms found something that sells even more in terms of gluing you to a screen, and that is rage. So I'm not suggesting we censor these folks, but they will elevate content. They will figure out your political leanings, your fears, and then start elevating content that enrages you, because enragement equals engagement equals shareholder value. So keep in mind, the amount of time you spend on a screen as a young man, and biologically, your prefrontal cortex isn't as developed as a woman. It doesn't catch up until you're 25. The executive function, the need for DOPA, is much more dangerous in a young man. Keep in mind that you will find they are trying to essentially convince you can have a reasonable facsimile of life on a screen. So keep in mind, you are up against a foe that is trying to separate you from the outside world. And very simply, mathematically, the more time you spend on a screen, the less likely you are to have loving relationships, the less money you're going to make, the more likely you are going to be to engage in self-harm, the more likely you are going to blame other people. In sum, the worse your life gets based on how much time you spend on a screen. We are mammals. We are meant to be outside and in the company of others, and we have for-profit companies trying to convince you to go the other way. So you're up against some very significant foes. On the idea of role models, the single point of failure, if you reverse engineered a boy coming off the tracks, is when he loses a male role model through either death, divorce, or abandonment. We have more single-parent homes than any nation in the world other than Sweden. And what's interesting is that girls in single-parent homes have the same outcome, same rates of college attendance, same income as dual-parent homes. A boy, when he loses a male role model, at that moment is more likely to be incarcerated than graduate from college. Women are relationally more invested or more talented establishing relationships. And typically they use their friends as a means of gaining confidence to enter into a romantic relationship, whereas a man, if he doesn't have a relationship by the time he's 30, there's a 1 in 3 chance he'll be a substance abuser. And also, there's a cartoon Oprah of the poor woman in her 30s that didn't find romantic love, and she's in a big sweater looking out on a rainy day, listening to sad music. What a tragedy. That's a cartoon. The reality is men need relationships much more than women. Widows are happier after their husband dies. Widowers, it's true, widowers are less happy. Women live longer in relationships. They live 2 to 4 years longer. Men live 4 to 7 years longer. So men actually need relationships more. What I would argue, or what I would be cognizant of the fact when you're talking about loneliness, is you're up against the deepest pocketed, most talented companies in the world with godlike technology who are trying to do one thing, and that is sequester you from your other relationships. They're either trying to get you to glued to the phone, and one of the ways they glue you to the phone is by enraging you, elevating content that makes you angry at your neighbor, elevate content that makes you start blaming the other gender or blame. Statistics are pretty stark. If you walk into a morgue and there's 5 people who've died by suicide, 4 are men. 3 times as like, we have a homeless problem and an opiate problem, but what we really have is a male homeless and a male opiate problem. 3 times as likely to be addicted, 3 times as likely to be homeless, 12 times as likely to be incarcerated. More single women own homes than single men. Women in urban areas are making more money. And let me be clear, we should do nothing to get in the way of that. But if our young men continue to flail, our country and women aren't going to continue to flourish. And just a couple of things you brought up, loneliness and then role models. 1 out of 4 men can't name a best friend. 1 out of 7 men don't have a single friend. And what I would say is there's a lot of factors around this, but something to be cognizant of is that
you've mentioned that it took you forever to cry. You know, I remember the last time one of my male friends texted me, I just cried for the first time in years. And it's out of desperation. Yes, I'm lonely. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. That we text each other late at night. You know, this is not something we talk about out in the open. These are conversations that we have, over the safety. We feel lonely, young men that we can express. We're confused. And we kind of need a voice in this wilderness, and you are that, and that's why this conversation is so important. So.
Wow.